Okay, great. We're starting now. So hello, everyone. Welcome to our second live X20 demo. So thank you for joining this one. I'm Taylor Jones, the marketing specialist at X20, and today we have our solutions engineer, Renee Leo, here to show you how to go from staging to production. So if you have any questions during the presentation, you can drop them in the Q&A below, and then she will answer them afterwards for you. So without further ado, here's Renee.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining again. So again, if you have any questions after our demo, I'm here for you to answer all the questions. So first, I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. I am a technical success engineer from Xplenty. I just recently joined, where I help clients build their ETL pipeline, data pipelines. So for today's demo, we have three things on the agenda. As you can see, I will briefly introduce the e-commerce data pipeline use case that we'll be using for today's demo. And then I'm going to briefly talk about the benefits of why we're using a staging table before we sending data to production table. Then I'm going to introduce you a little bit about our Xplenty's workflow feature, workflow tool that's make this whole pipeline possible. Last, but the most important is for you to ask me questions. So today's e-commerce data pipeline is to pull the data from a e-commerce orders database that involves multiple data tables that's generated from 3 different time zones. So the point of this demo is to pull the data from those 3 different time zones and then consolidate them, then push them into one single staging table that resides in BigQuery. And then after that, we are going to perform some quality check on that staging table before we're sending the data in the staging table to the production table. So that's basically the use case for today's demo. So you might be wondering why we're using a staging table before we're sending data to the production table. There are many, many benefits of using staging table. The top 3 would be we can consolidate data first before we do anything. So this is a really good common practice in the data engineering field. The second is that because staging table resides in a database, so we can actually take advantage of the functionalities in the database to do some data cleaning or data sorting, some common operations in the staging table, utilizing the functionalities in the database itself. And then in the staging table, we can also quality check the data before we send data to the production table. Last but not least, using the staging table prevents different systems to interact with the production system directly. So this will make the whole system more efficient, especially for the end user. So that's basically the top benefits of using a staging table. Next, I'm going to introduce you a little bit about Xplenty's workflow, which you will see very soon. So Xplenty's workflow is basically like orchestrating tools where you can execute multiple packages, data pipelines, and tasks in one single package, in one single workflow, in other words. And then you can also decide the orders you want them to be executed. And then you can also decide what kind of logic conditions you want the first package to be based on before you run the next package. So all this will come to life when you see the demo. So yeah, without further ado, let me present you the demo for our data pipeline today. Let's get started.
Technical difficulties per usual with live demos. Let me help you figure it out, Renee. Give us 1 second.
Thank you, Taylor. can use a very descriptive name. Once this is defined, I will click Save to save this component. Now the staging table is empty and ready. I'm going to extract the e-commerce orders data from 3 different time zones in a chronological fashion. Click Add button. Now I'm going to run a package to achieve this goal. Click into this component. I will choose the specific package I built earlier before this demo to achieve this goal. As the name suggests, this package extracts data from orders that are generated in time zone 1 and send it over to the BigQuery staging table. Let me click into this package to show you the details of this pipeline. Let's give this browser a little bit of time. Here, as you can see, this data pipeline itself is very simple and straightforward. All it does is to extract data from the MongoDB database that contains the data generated in time zone 1 and then send it over to the Google BigQuery order staging table. Let me close this out. Now we're back to our workflow. Let's give it a name. Once the name and the package is defined, we can save this component. Now, I'm going to run another package that extracts data from e-commerce orders data that's generated in the second time zone and push it over to the staging table on BigQuery. I'm going to choose Run Package Task, click into it, give it a name first. Then we'll choose the specific pipeline we built earlier that performs this task. Here you can see that we have a specific package that extracts orders generated in time zone 2 and send it over to the BigQuery data table. Save this component. Now let's extract the last batch of the data with exactly the same operation. Run package. We will give it a name. Orders. That's from the 3rd time zone. And then we'll choose a specific pipeline or package that's designed to perform this task. Then we'll click Save. All right. Now the staging table should have all the orders data in place. I'm going to perform a simple quality check task to confirm that the staging table is not empty anymore. I want to perform this task once the last batch of data is successfully pushed in, which means that I will click Run Package. And then I want to run this package after this component is being successfully run on success. So now I'm going to click this package, this component. Here I have pre-built another single pipeline that can perform the quality check to see if the table is empty. Let me open this up to show you the detail. Let's again give the browser a little bit of time. Looks like the internet is really busy today. Okay. Here we can see that we will first pull the staging table data in from the BigQuery connector. And then we'll perform an insertion transformation where the row count cannot be 0. If the row count is 0, then this component will throw an error saying staging table is empty. And you might be wondering, where does the row count come from? The row count actually comes from a BigQuery SQL query that's run against this order staging table. So we save it, and then we'll finally we'll push this row count into a storage place for our references in the future. Okay. So let me close out this package. Now we're back to our workflow. Here again, we'll use the package. We'll use this data quality check package to perform this data quality task. We'll give it a name, quality check, to see if the table is empty. And we will save this component. All right. If this quality check package is run successfully, we can start updating the production table by deleting its rows. Click Add. We'll execute this SQL query to achieve that goal. Click into it. Choose the corresponding connector. Click Next. We'll delete every rows in that production table by running this SQL query. And then we'll give it a name. Once everything's properly defined, we will save this component. Finally, we're ready to push the data from the staging to the production table. We will achieve this by running another package. Click into this component. We'll choose the corresponding package that can perform this goal. Here, we can see that this pre-built pipeline is extracting data from a staging table to a production table. And this is exactly what we need. Then we'll give it a name. Staging to production. Click Save. As you can see, we have built out a workflow that executes different tasks and packages in an orchestrated way, in that each task or package can only be executed if the previous one is successful. What do I mean by that? If you click this green arrow, you can see that if I choose unsuccess, it just means that I want to execute this next component only when this first component is successfully run. Finally, we can save and run this job to execute this workflow. Thank you for watching this demo. Now it's your turn to ask me any questions you have. The starting All right, thank you for watching this demo. So I apologize for the technical difficulty at the starting point of our demo. So just briefly recap what was going on in the first few minutes. I was simply performing a SQL query task that's deleting and updating the staging table before we pushing the data in. So if there is anything that you missed or you want to ask, now it's your turn to ask any questions you have. Okay, I see one Q&A question. Let me find it in my, okay. So it says, what will happen if the criteria isn't met? That's a really good question. So I think the question was trying to ask if one of the tasks, so remember we did an assertion check. So that kind of criteria, if that kind of criteria isn't met, what would happen in our workflow? So this would happen if our workflow will stop. So remember, our workflow can result in failure or success or simply being stopped. So in this case, if assertion check hasn't been passed, this whole workflow will stop. So this will actually make our resources more efficiently used because if it stopped, that means that our resources will just pause. So it won't run the next jobs because we won't want the next jobs to be run. So I mean, that's a long winding question, but answer in short, it will just stop. Okay. The second question is, can you run multiple workflows simultaneously? This is from an anonymous attendee. So this is really an interesting question. So on Xplenty, we have two types of packages. The first type is data flow, and the second type is workflow. So basically, workflow contains data flow in some sense, with some criteria or logical conditions in between, or SQL query tasks. So which means that a workflow can't really contain any other workflow. Because if ever you want to run multiple workflow at the same time, simultaneously, you can put all of them on one schedule, and then you can run multiple workflows at the same time, if that makes sense. And we got lots of questions. So the third question is, what's the difference between using a package task instead of a SQL query task in the last step? So just to recap, the last step is when I push the cleaned up, checked data from the staging table to production table, where I used a data pipeline or a package to achieve that. So essentially we can really use a SQL query task to do that. We can just do insert into production table using all the data selected from staging table. So we can use a SQL query, but there is a benefit of using a package task, because if you use a package, you can let the package deal with this whole process automatically without writing any single line of SQL query code, if that makes sense. The last question, I'm not sure if this is last, but the next question is there a reason you would want to choose a condition like failure to move to the next task? Yes, so we have plenty of good reasons to do that. So one of the top reasons would be you simply want this to fail so that you can get an error message, and then you can get notified when in which process or steps during your workflow that you failed, so that you can get notified immediately using our service hook. In this sense, you can just jump right back in to fix your error immediately. This will save time for your analysis team, or some other processes in your data pipeline building. And the other reason would be simply just because it failed, then you will just simply stop this workflow, so that can save the computational resources. So that's a really good question. All right, this is our last question, I guess. If you have any other questions, just don't be shy. Just contact me either through my email or through my work phone, or on Xplenty's website. Thank you again for your questions and for your time for today. Thank you.